JP is an Indian politician, a former physician, and JP is a political reformer and columnist. He is the founder and the president of Loksatta Party and was an ex-member of Legislative Assembly from Kukatpalli constituency, Andhra Pradesh in India. Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan is the founder of Loksatta Party and is the founder and general secretary of Foundation for Democratic Reforms, an independent public policy think tank and resource center. A giant in policy and reform, Dr. JP has been instrumental in driving 3 constitutional amendments and over 15 landmark legislative acts. The constitutional amendments he worked on include creation of National Judicial Appointments Commission to bring transparency to judicial appointments, limiting the size of Council of Ministers to eliminate jumbo cabinets, and this is something like we are witnessing. His more recent legislative contributions are AP Reorganization Act, Lokpal Act, which we all know, Right to Information Act. I think this is a game changer, but unfortunately we are not using this. I think effective usage is important once we have these acts in place, but it may take some more time to make it more effective. So disclosure of candidate wealth and criminal details. This we are aware, right? In addition, he has also held the landmark governance actions, including establishment of a national rural health mission, cancellation of 122 2G spectrum licenses, and creating policy to allocate natural resources through competitive bidding, blocking the provisions to ban field trials of GM crops in India to ensure food and nutritional security of Indians and economic gains for farmers. So today, we talked about Foundation for Democratic Reforms. There is an organization, a NGO organization, and they have done a lot of research. And even it's a learning for me. I've been learning this for the past 2 weeks, and it's very important for community to really spend some time on these activities, what they are doing. Take a closer look, and please help or provide whatever support you can, right? So it's a group of intellectuals and research scientists, and they collected all the data across India in different areas, right? Education, healthcare, rural development, or infrastructure, right? Rule of law. So it's very important, right, to honor whatever the data they collected, and they have recommended with some solutions to the problems. And let's take example of education, right? We all know, and we all every day complain about what's happening in India, right? But JP Garu, he took a step forward, and he started building a big network, a platform open for everyone. Not just to talk about the problem, but they come up with the data, and they reached out to all the universities, right, like Harvard, MIT, Stanford, and they took their feedback. So it's a real working solutions, right? These are all used in different countries, and they've seen the results, right? So now they took all this information and they put this in Indian context, right? How it works in India. So please, right? So take some time. We are all busy with something or else. I know, kids are going to college, kids are going to school, and it's summer, right? And 365 days we're all busy with something or else, some personal things. But I would say, the effort, what they're putting, it's really commendable. it's something we will miss if you have not nurtured this environment, if you don't encourage this platform, right? So let's think about like our future generations, what they want, and please spend some time, open up a dialogue with your kids and involve them, right? That's more important, that's key for all this, for today's event. And that said, any questions on so far? If not, like, we'll directly dive into the next, so let me explain. Okay, before that, any questions or any clarity is missing or anything that you guys want to know? No? So as we earlier said, like today's topic is promises versus performance, and our focus would be on education. So what are the gaps in the education and how we can make the outcome better, right? So basically bridging the gap. So we have a deck from FDR organization, and our kids, right? My son Himagda Nagala and Anudeep Chenuri, they come forward and they spend time going through this, digesting the data, and they want to present this. Though this is not like, this is completely new for them. And they did, and thanks for Anudeep and Himagna for coming forward and supporting this.
So, while they're setting up, this FDR, where is this located from the point of view of the operation in Delaware? And how is it?
I'll give it to like Dr. JP Garu. Let it come from a horse's mouth.
FDR is a foundation that we created in 1996. It's in fact the mother organization of most of the work that Loksatta movement and others have done. It's a society registered in India, and we have a small number of founder members. Very quiet, self-effacing. It's not generally talked about, but we do very diligent research. It's based in Hyderabad. Diligent research, and almost everything we propose is based on evidence and logic and best practices all over the world. And as Anil has explained, this FDR's work is behind 3 constitutional amendments, the 91st, 97th and 99th in the country. There's a lot of work behind that to make a constitutional amendment happen in a complex country like India. It doesn't happen in a jiffy, it happens enormous effort in persuasion. I didn't have a single member of parliament obviously, but we could persuade all members of parliament across the parties and then make these things happen. At least 8 or 9 significant legislations in the country, including the Right to Information Act and Lokpal Act and local courts law and candidate disclosure law, political funding law and so on and so forth. And significant number of policy initiatives including agricultural export ban. India had a glut of food grains in the country. They were rotting and the price was crashing. Global prices were good, and only in India we do these stupid things. We banned exports. And it took quite a bit of effort for us to persuade them to lift the ban. And since then, India is the largest exporter of rice, and Andhra Pradesh, Telangana are the biggest beneficiaries of that export, for instance. So on and so forth. A significant number of initiatives, including 2G spectrum cancellation, and not only that. Since then, there is transparent allocation of resources, natural resources, by competitive bidding in India. So at least one huge area, corruption is now shut down. So step by step, it's not about rabble-rousing and complaining, it's about systematic, constructive, institutional solutions. That is the approach. And we are the most successful in India, largely because we are the quietest about these things. For long I have realized that if there is a God, we are now in the presence of God in this temple. God makes great things happen through people who do not care who get the credit. You focus on the issue and the outcome, build alliances and build strategies around specific goals. Even if there are differences and other issues, don't bother. Focus on an issue at a time. And seize the moment. Whenever there's an opportunity, seize the moment, because our greatest aid is the context. We can't create the context, but we utilize the context and push the agenda. And that's how we achieve significant changes. But related to what India needs to do, what we have done is still very small. Though we have done more than any other group in India, I'm not impressed, because related to what we need to do, this is still minuscule. The reason why now we are reaching out to the country and the world is, I realize A, that we are all mortal. Like all of us, I'm an optimist, because once you have technology background, you think that no, rationality, evidence, things should happen, period. If it can happen, it should happen. What's the big deal? Life taught me a lesson that society does not always operate that way. Science and technology operate in one way, but societies are a little number. They take longer to rebuild, to build institutions and to change the ways of thinking as well as doing. And therefore, it's a much more long-term effort than I hoped. I believed in about 5 years' time, much of the reform required in India would happen. I was that naive. Now I realize it probably is generation. And therefore, we have to build now a capability across the next generation. Build a widespread leadership and then get everybody involved, not only in the street work, at the field level, but also in the intellectual work and in the advocacy. And that's the primary reason why we're going around. And we want to now create a web-based platform so that virtual communities can build around the issues that you're committed to. Somebody may be interested in education, somebody else healthcare, somebody else wants local government, somebody else rule of law, somebody else agriculture, our own passions. Each of these issues and several more, we can then make sure that we're all on the same page, and we add cumulatively to the knowledge base and the institutional solutions, and use whatever individual and collective leverage that we have to push the needle at the state and national level in the country. And for that, several initiatives are now being launched. I would like all of you to partner them wherever you feel comfortable. I have not come here to ask for money or votes. I come here for your minds and your hearts. I'm asking for money. Money is the easiest thing. Money doesn't solve problems, all problems. If money solves all problems, it's easy stuff. Much more is required than money. Therefore, what I'm looking for is engagement. And you guys, for instance, were largely instrumental in a seamless economic reform process, such as it was. In 1991, the context did not come because of us. It was created. But the context could be utilized well, and seamlessly we could transform to some extent because you were all right. You all taught us that how a system works elsewhere. And our stupid license permit charge is not the right way to go about. And because already the minds are primed, very quickly, very quietly, very peacefully, significant change could be effected. That's what I'm looking for. Are we ready as a society, as a community of people with deep concern for India? And if we are, then the context will always come. We will all together figure out how to strategize now. That is my life's work. That's why we could achieve so many changes without any political power, because we know how to seize the context. And then sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't, but we have to push. So that's the background.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. JP. So, without much further delay, let me invite Magna and Anandip Cheturi.
The biggest input is still teacher salaries. The point is, it's not that the public, the exchequer is not spending money. It's coming to about 90,000 rupees per child, which is quite a lot of money for India. So it's not lack of resources that is the key problem. The second thing that we have to understand is, many states of India are undergoing a demographic change. India is no longer a growing population country. All southern states, Western India, Maharashtra, then states like Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Bengal, Orissa, they all have reached a level which is lower than population stabilization level. That means the population is now going to fall. Birth rates are dwindling. Therefore, already the school-going children's population is actually declining in large parts of the country, with one or two exceptions, particularly Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, and one or two of the other big Hindi states. However, the rest of India, the number of children going to schools is actually decreasing. Therefore, the answer is not more teachers. We already have excellent teacher-student ratio. Take AP and Telangana. The teacher-student ratio is 17 or 18 children per teacher. I don't think you are much better. The teacher's salaries are a minimum of 60,000. To start with, the lowest salary for the lowest grade teacher is about 45,000 rupees a month. Goes up to 125,000 rupees a month, which in India is a princely sum. So it's not so much the salaries or the number of teachers. We are simply deploying them back. So the standard things, spend more money, build better building, all these are necessary, I have no quarrel with that. But the challenge is something deep. That is the solution. The demographic change gives us actually an opportunity. So it's not hiring more teachers, it's deploying them better. That's right.
Small town as well. If you go in the morning or if you go in the evening, there's a flood of people going in and coming out. But if you see the facility, it's very small. So it's really concentrated so much. It's so much pressure, and there is no freedom to do any sports events or anything of that nature. So
Right.
have you collected any of that in that aspect as well? That also can improve the education, because when you are stress-free, it's really going to help the kids as well.
Yeah, actually, this survey covers all 360 degrees.
Oh, okay.
And you will see like more data coming.
Okay.
And regarding the facilities, that should be no surprise because we went over how much money the government is putting in these local schools. And this crazy amount of money that's putting in, the facilities are going to be top line. Yeah, we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so yeah.
There was a slide earlier talking about 30-40% schools with fewer than 30, 40, 50 children. There are actually schools, you won't believe it, where the teachers outnumber students. I'm not misspeaking. When I first came out of the data in the assembly, there was a shock and consternation across the board. It's ridiculous. While we have the teacher-student ratio across the country is 24. In Andhra Pradesh, Telangana is 17 or 18. But the asymmetry, some schools, 500 kids, 3 or 4 teachers. Some schools, 2 kids enrolled and 3 teachers posted actually. I mean, it's possible only in India. It's almost like a caricature. It's very hard to believe that it happens unless you know that it actually happens. So the third one is pretty simple. But the moment you try and consolidate, because of my pressure over the years, both the states are making some very lukewarm kind of efforts. The moment they make some efforts, immediately newspapers headlines scream, 1,000 schools are closed down, which is a lie. You're consolidating schools. Instead of 10 kids and a makeshift and a make-believe school, you're trying to have an institutional environment, 5 classrooms, at least primary school, 5 teachers minimum, and some 100, 150 kids, so that there is an environment. But even that, because of ignorance and the teacher union's pressure and the political party's pusillanimity, immediately there is all kinds of misinformation.
Can you please use the mic so that everybody...
So I think I really want to emphasize on this whole idea of, route-based learning versus actually how we change the outcomes. Again, thanks to Anil, and most importantly, I would like to thank Ravi Garu, who is a part of this global society. From my personal experience recently, I thought when we are looking at how they are being taught, right, the first thing I thought is the curriculum is really geared up to it. So when I went back and looked, having very heavily involved with academia and everything, with my background, one thing I thought, until you have an analytical approach of analyzing things, hands-on, either in the school system like what we have in different kind of either science or anything they do, there's a lot of hands-on work. That's what actually makes you being analytical in the school system here. So I went back, I was trying to come up with a lot more modules where we can actually have hands-on experiences in the school. To my real surprise, I went back to look at, I acquired all the books from Telangana and Andhra for all the school education from 6th grade all the way up, even below. To my surprise, when you look at the textbooks, they are so geared up than what I studied. They have explanation of practical outcomes, what they can do, their explanations. But unfortunately, the system, there's no value for any teacher to be able to perform that in the school. Because at the end of the day, what matters is either you got that 98% or not. That's what actually decides whether you are going to the next level or not. So how do you think that we had to build that gap? So where you can actually encourage, let's not thinking of policies, right? What kind of incentive? Because we worked very hard to have one hands-on class, and before all the election holidays, teachers involved in something, then there are several festivals. hardly you will have an opportunity to have one more hands-on. How do you think that we can build that gap, not involving so much policy?
It's a great question. Thank you for that intervention. I want you to reflect a little carefully. First is, it's not the textbooks or curriculum that are seriously at fault. Obviously, they require constant improvement on that. But it's many people, many new governments, they think, oh, now I'll change all the syllabus, I'll change the curriculum, I'll change, it's all rubbish. Much of it is decent. We can improve, but that's not the real challenge. Many people in CRT, State Council of Education Research Training, others, they're doing considerable amount of work. They are not completely bereft of talent and intellect. Something is going on. The second thing that we have to realize is that earlier there was a slide, there are 3 levels at which you have to operate. If you are looking at after the school, there you are hands-on. How to inspire a particular teacher, train and change some methods locally and bring in flexibility. If you're looking at a large subsystem like for instance school district or a district in India or something else, it's administrative. How to coordinate, and how to transfer the best practices, how to inspire the people and so on and so forth. And how to recruit better people. But if you look at the larger system, 190 million kids in India, in schools, remember? 190 million kids in schools. I'm talking from grade 1 to grade 10 only, not beyond that. That's more than half the population of the United States in schools. So there is no supply side solution that will work. They all have to be local supply solutions. The demand is very strong. Our greatest strength in India is we are not a sub-Saharan African country. Our parents live and die for children, their future. They sacrifice a great deal. Society values education, the kind of publicity generated when somebody gets a good rank in MSET or IIS or something else in India, you all see. Because society values it. Let's take the positive spirit. Government is spending a lot of money. Recklessly, foolishly, yes, but a lot of public money is being spent. So the demand side is extremely strong. When that is the case, in that unique situation, the best way to change everybody's behavior is not to go and, I can't really micromanage a teacher or a school. The moment you define success differently, that means have an examination system, something equivalent to PISA but a slightly lower standard. Don't scare them away immediately. Because if you have PISA kind of exam today, chances are only 10% of Indian kids will pass. Bring a little below PISA level. I'm just giving a crude example. So that 50-60% have a realistic chance and they know exactly what is expected of them. I am betting them, the kids, the parents, the teachers, managements, everybody will adjust their behavior because everybody is seeking the same thing, success. And only thing there is, it's not as simple as I said it. 30 years ago it was simpler. In the rampant mass copying that is prevalent, you must make sure that even that test is of integrity. There are 2 elements. Once you do that, the whole system will adjust itself. There will be all kinds of distortions. It will not be perfect. Private schools will still lack infrastructure. The all-round development of the kid is still not there. But these are multiple problems over the years. But at least let's make sure that minimal academic outcomes are there. Yes, and that's possible. And that's exactly our approach. Look at the deliverables, simple deliverable. And the most important incentive is redefine success, measure it properly, and because of the given enormous demand in India, all segments of all stakeholders will immediately readjust their behavior because no parent wants bad scores. Right now they're getting good scores by a certain method. Tomorrow they'll get good scores by a different method. And they will not aspire for that.
Just to continue, the other part I would like to say, to make it really happen, make your presence here and our participation valuable, where we can play a role, either building with the teacher, where we can actually bring a different technique of resource, where we can provide our intellectual data.
Terrific, you are anticipating all the points.
We can make it happen.
Great. Let me place before you 2 things. One, even this understanding and looking at specific institutional solutions is important. There is so much of energy and enthusiasm and passion about school education in India, both abroad and within the country, which is phenomenal. I mean, the amount of energy, the amount of money, the amount of time that is being given, I feel so incredibly blessed. As a country, as a society, we are very blessed. If all of us are on the same page, with that passion, if we also bring data-driven, very logical approach to system building locally and globally, that itself is the starting point. So this one aspect of this particular tour of mine is to try and enthuse people about the specific institutional solutions in the sector of your choice. In this case, let's say education, today we discuss. The second is, apart from advocacy, can we generate some processes? What we are doing right now, I'm in the process of doing it. We are creating an independent testing board. If the governments come forward to it, it's wonderful. But right now, there's not much of enthusiasm. Governments are not yet bothered because they don't think there are votes in improving the outcomes in education. Even when they spend money on education, it's more like freebies rather than looking at outcomes. Probably it will come in the next 5-10 years. To accelerate the process, what we are doing now, FDR doing now, is create an independent testing board, non-profit obviously, and create a market for that, an aspirational thing. Start with private schools which want to be recognized as achieving good results, and once they have that kind of certification, that brand, then obviously their market value goes up. That's the reason they will come. But for us, if more and more people therefore want this, and we'll also sell the idea to government schools, like the state of Haryana is now doing a good job in my opinion. I'm very enthused by what Haryana is doing. They're trying to actually go to primary schools, measure outcomes systematically across the whole state. It's still early stages, but I see genuine commitment in Haryana with government. They want to do it. So strengthen their capabilities, work with other people who are doing the work across the country, and slowly build the system, capability of the system in a manner that you can actually measure outcomes and make them the standard. And even if the governments are slow to catch up, we do it on our own, because that will become a driver for change. And in that initiative, we are creating a non-profit company, Section 8 companies we call it in India, and we are looking at the legal aspects. I want all of you to be partners in that. You can be shareholders. There's no profit there, obviously, but you are the stakeholders. You want to improve education. I don't want the money to be transferred to any organization in India. The normal charitable thing, frankly, it means nothing. For the humongous problems of India, whatever be the money we put in, it can only, if you put in very wisely, strategically it has value. But to solve the problem, all the money of the world is not enough. India must find its own internal resources and utilize them wisely. Therefore, our intervention must be strategic. And we are creating that platform, that testing board, for instance, we can intervene. Plus, I want each of you, there are some young people from Maharashtra, some others from Bihar, Orissa, wherever it is, all of India is roughly the same boat. While there are some minor variations, the ASAR survey that we talked about, annual status of education report, those numbers are appallingly bad across the whole country. It is so painful, and it's getting worse. In 2005, I released the first ASAR report in Delhi. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, the Vice Chairman of the Planning Commission, and we both released that particular report, the first report in 2005. I've been following very closely over the past 13, 14 years. It's appalling. Recently, both in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, in one district each, there was a survey of 14 to 18-year-old kids. Now, I normally don't like to say these things in public, but we're all Indian, and this is not to understand, not to debunk our country. 14 to 18-year-olds in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. 50% of kids between 14 and 18 cannot look at a watch and read the time in hours and minutes. I want you to let it sink in. See, it's that bad. In one state, 50%, another state, 30%. But 30% wala may say better. I don't understand. Between 14 and 18, if Indian kids in 2019 cannot read time, we have a serious list. 50% in some states, 35%. They cannot put the weight. Suppose you say, I want you to weigh 2.7 kilograms of brinjal. They do not know how to put the 2.7 kilograms of weight, measures, and put it in the balance. 14 and 18 years, between 14 and 18. Real numbers. Everything I say is statistically, the evidence is there. There's nothing impromptu. I may be rolling off some numbers, that's all. Things are grim. But therein lies the hope. They can easily be set right. We simply shortchanged our children. We messed up our education. We destroyed a whole generation. Yes, damage is done, but you can easily reverse the process now. It's not that difficult. I'm not even aiming to do top PISA scores along the way. I'm saying from here to bring to this level is much easier. Go there is much little harder, but at least bring this very fast. That's the problem.
Thank you, Saiji, for your question. And I'm going to vote for him this time.
So, Srini Malampadi. So, out of all the 6 crises you mentioned, I can see the other end of the tunnel, though very far, for the 5 of them, but one of them is really difficult.
Which one?
Yeah, I'm going to go there. Law enforcement.
Yeah.
You think about, from the point they ask for the votes, they're making the people corrupt. I mean, we should not blame the people is what the notion goes, but in reality, that's a basic, fundamental core that needs to be cleaned up. And now, from there, then, MLA is, for example, getting the seat by paying a lot of money to the party, and then from there, once he becomes the MLA, he needs to earn more money because he already spent a lot of money and he needs to recoup and gain more. So, at every level, from there it goes, it's a ripple effect, right? So, how do we clean that up? I'm not saying, hey, let us clean that up in a day or a year or a decade or a century, but what are the baby steps we need to start taking even to really reach the end goal?
Great question.
Thank you. JP, a second, I think.
Yeah.
Who works for law enforcement? Are you guys following?
Yeah.
Who works for law?
Mr. JP.
Okay. How about me? Nena? Nenuda? Kada? So is police?
Yes.
Okay, and inkevaru?
And then like anyone who like just
That's right, okay.
maybe like firefighters, doctors, the army,
Okay.
and then also the politicians.
Oh, I'm sorry for putting you in spot. You're right there. Okay, what's your name?
My name's Satvik.
Satvik. Just to see whether you're following or not. JP garu, over to you. Sorry, Andy.
Thank you, Safi. There are 2 parts to your question. Let me take one, the political part. You also want to rule of the maybe on some other occasion to discuss that. The easy and lazy analysis would be that all these politicians are the scum of humanity. But it's both easy and lazy. And it's not true. That's not the problem. I know I'm probably in a hopeless minority in India, but I'm absolutely right. Just because you're in a minority doesn't mean that you're wrong. As somebody said, one man with conviction is a majority. And here it's not really conviction. I have made it my life's mission to try and understand what's happening. Politicians are like you and I. They are no different from us. We know many of them. It's not that a different breed of people, the most corrupt, the most demonical, the most crooked fellows have entered politics from panchayat sarpanch to parliament level is a nonsensical assumption. They're like you and I. They respond to incentives. Willy-nilly, without understanding what we are doing, we built a very half-baked mockery of a democracy. We reduced democracy to vote and shouting, protest. Freedom exercised in a very casual manner. We didn't really build institutional mechanisms to make our people understand the link between the vote they give and the consequences to their lives at a personal level. I'm compressing everything because there's no time, but each word I can assure you is chiseled, is thought through with extraordinary care, with enormous evidence. If you create those initial conditions as we have, namely an unaccountable lower bureaucracy where there is no predictability of service delivery, you have to beg and you have to plead, you have to go 100 times, and there is petty corruption on a daily basis, and asymmetry of power. A lack of understanding of what this whole democracy is about. I know that the new Maharaja is the MLA or somebody. I only know that this Maharaja is by some miracle because of my vote. Beyond that, I don't understand anything about democracy. I call it democracy, I call myself a voter. But there's no understanding of citizenship. And high degree of centralization where local correctives are not possible. And failure of rule of law. Normatively it's there on paper, but in reality rule of law sticks. Once you have these 4 initial conditions, I guarantee you, any society on earth eventually degenerates exactly the way Indian democracy has degenerated. It's mathematical, it's logical. You have to set right all these 4. Service delivery to reduce the burden on the political system. Now we look at the MLA and say this rascal is doing so much. But you realize how much political parties are suffering? In an assembly constituency, between 200 and 1,000 political workers are available through the 5 years, not during the election, at the beck and call of ordinary people for simple mentoring and hand-holding, for a birth certificate and a ration card and a water connection and other things. It's not the politician's job. It's not the party's job. And those fools have accepted that burden without improving the delivery of services and holding the employees to account. Now they are in a rut. They don't dare to even come out of it, because the moment you say employees must work, you lose the votes and you lose power. Everybody is terrified of it, including Narendra Modi, the great champion of India, the muscular He-Man. He's terrified of employees. Have you noticed it? There's not one word he said against the employees as a class in India. In fact, he enacted a law in Parliament in 2017. You know what it said? If you pay 100 rupees bribe in India, you can be imprisoned for 7 years to pay 100 rupees to get something which is due to you. You're not got anything out of town. What is due to you, because they're not delivering, you have to go at it repeatedly, and therefore you pay a bribe. You will be imprisoned for 7 years, but a mandatory minimum of 3 years. One of the few laws in India where there's a mandatory minimum sentencing, like in the United States. And you know what happens to the bribe taker? They will not even be a police case without the prior government permission. See the asymmetry. 2017, that law was enacted. Or maybe in 2018, I don't recall the exact date. So you're terrified. Because while the number is minuscule by India's population, their collective strength is phenomenal, even electoral strength. They and their families account for, you take Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, there are about 8 to 9 lakh employees of government. You multiply that by 3 or so, 2.5 or 3, in terms of voters, we're looking at 25-30 lakh voters. No chief minister dares to tell the employees you work. In fact, the only chief minister who is at least saying it is KCR. In all of India today. He's saying it loudly. I respect him for that. So, that is the one facet. The other facets are, as I mentioned to you, the absence of rule of law framework gives incentive to the wrong kind of people to get into power, because the policemen whom you should fear, they fear you the moment you are in power. So there's a distorted set of incentives there. The third one is the citizens' lack of understanding of the meaning of the vote. In a centralized system, vote is a mockery. And when you don't see the link between the vote and what happens to you in life, when you are desperately poor and hungry, you certainly accept money for a vote. Every party is giving money, everybody is accepting money. If you take money, it doesn't guarantee victory, but if you don't give money, it guarantees defeat. In 99 out of 100 cases at least. And therefore the politician who goes there, who wants to be in public office, he is now sucked into it. He has no choice. Either that or you get out of it. You give up. And money is not sufficient because everybody is paying money now. I don't have to tell you, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana recently was in elections, and you all have fantastic feedback from each constituency. You will tell me many stories, so I don't have to repeat anything. Then freebies. Look at the freebies now in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. We have come to a stage where the government can do nothing more than merely paying salaries and giving freebies and plundering as much as they can in between. Period. There is nothing left. We come to that precipice now. So far things were at least reasonably manageable, but now they are beyond control. We have a deep fiscal crisis now awaiting many states of India because of this. And it's inevitable. I have been the lone fighter in India, consistently opposing freebies of all kinds, from free power to loan waiver to anything. Whatever be the alleged intention, the disaster is inevitable unless you actually enhance the productive capacities of the people. And because even freebies everybody is delivering, offering and delivering, divides society. Caste, region, religion, the divides of India are easy. So all this became the staple of politics. So unless we now go back, decentralized power, at least urban areas, to start with, at least the reason why in Delhi there was some movement, right kind of movement is, At least in Delhi, you have now decentralization to a point where the Chief Minister of Delhi is the most empowered mayor of India. Much less empowered than any mayor in the United States, but more empowered than any mayor in India. In effect, it's a good local, reasonable local government where people feel my vote here makes some difference to my life. Therefore, they are willing to vote. Whereas elsewhere, it makes no difference who you vote for. There is no change in that. Therefore, they will not vote except a small moral vote. They will not be a vote to change the country. So decentralization is one key. The second is internal party democracy. At least bring in the right kind of candidates to democratic process. I don't want to go into details. But even this will not be sufficient because now we are too far gone. In my judgment, we have to look at the electoral system, at least at the state level. Let there be a direct election of the chief minister so that incentives are altered. As long as the MLA-driven system is there, as long as there are candidates who are willing to spend 50 crores or 40 crores from America or from India for an MLA seat and an MLA contest, and India is a crazy country where, I don't understand why the hell people want to be an MLA and then spend 50 crores. That requires a special craziness. That's a cultural problem. As long as that is there, in the current system, first past the post system, there is no short-term escape. And India cannot afford to wait for the long term because the decline then is precipitous. Therefore, I believe, apart from decentralization of power, the most important driver of change, real decentralization, an electoral system change, moving towards a direct election at the state level, and some kind of proportionality model so that an individual with money power is not the one who is getting an advantage. 30 years ago, I would have answered differently. India has moved considerably in the last 30 years. Now, as things get more and more fossilized, you have to look at more and more innovative and sometimes even more radical solutions. There are no easy fixes. But what I mentioned is a compressed version of a vast thing. But time is a constraint. But we'll continue with that. I'm glad you asked the question. That is my life's work. How to change the electoral and political system is my life's work. And I have done probably more thinking than almost any human being on earth.
Thank you, Jayaprakash. And keeping the schedule in mind and respecting everybody's time, we'll take 3 more questions, last questions. Every question we encourage them to ask. You might not get an opportunity in the first lecture. Okay, no?
And now I see the yellow buses coming to that small town, all the private schools. And sometimes I'm happy about it that private, and I don't know why we are all scared of going to private. Being privatization is bad, but I think it's a solution to several problems. And, it's not like here it is a rosy picture in the United States versus there also. I don't know if we had a time to talk to people like me here. Delaware is known to be not so great schools, right? I work in Delaware, live in Pennsylvania for the sole reason of my kids going to the middle school. So that's a big, everybody knows the story here, right? And then New Jersey sounds supposed to be the best schools in the country. And then obviously the schools are better because of many reasons. One, being the urbanization, highly paid jobs and everything, and the income tax and the property tax is higher there, and if you buy a house you have to pay more tax, versus Pennsylvania is a little somewhat higher and Delaware is lower. Obviously it's a localized, the salaries are cleared with the local governments, taxes coming from the house owners here, right? So we see the result here. The private schools are doing better. Even Delaware people, they want to go to the private school here, Terrell School, and a couple of more. And there is a charter school. They come up with an idea of charter school. The public schools force you to live inside an area. So there are all those problems, right? Social, economical problems, like nobody wants to send their kid to the public school where all sense of problems, no child left behind policy is like teachers are only focusing on the lowest performing kid, and I don't want my kid to be given less importance. So I will put it in charter or public private school, right? So, I mean, I don't see anything bad in it, and we all follow that actually, being honest, right? So one of the solutions is consolidation. I'm worried about it, and then the second one was privatization. I don't think we need to be worried. Yes, some private schools are crowded and no facilities. That's something government can take action to enforce the rules, but that's what I think. Thank you.
Rashid, a brief response about consolidation. I understand your concern. When there is a clash between access and quality, how do you make choices? I fully respect that. India chose a model where the school must be within a few hundred meters of the community. And in a country with 1.5 million habitats, you really created 1.5 million or maybe 2 million schools in India. But the reality is most of them are ramshackle schools. 10 kids, 5 classes, single room, single teacher, pretend education. And because it's a small, multiple number of schools, there's no monitoring, nobody bothered, and the teacher came once in a while, didn't come, etc. etc. That is one part. The other part is from the very village where this small ramshackle school is situated, kids are going by bus 15-20 kilometers to a low-end private school, spending hard-earned money out of pocket. So what does it mean? If there is even a half expectation or hope of better outcomes, distance is not such a big issue. These are the poorest kids, remember. And if in a makeshift ramshackle school, pretend school, there is no education at all, and if you cannot improve education for 10 kids, there is no way you can improve for 5 classes, 10 kids education. Economies of scale don't work. My approach would be to consolidate as much as possible and give transport subsidy. We have a busing system, and the kind of money we are spending today, this is peanuts. If you spend 150 to 200 rupees a month to a kid, that's nothing in India. Believe me. So I'm not saying there's an ideal solution. There isn't an ideal solution. If you want scale, obviously you have to consolidate. But if you want access, ideal is each home must have one school. So somewhere you have to see a balance. So I see your point. But there's no easy solution. Right now, the current system, in all these ramshackle schools, there's hardly any education. That much is certain. The evidence is conclusive, not even compelling. It's conclusive.
So we'll take a question here.
Hello sir, my name is Jayaprakash. I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to speak to you today, sir. And you have been a beacon of hope and optimism for me during my times of distress as well. Thank you for all that you do for all the fellow beings. And I have 2 questions, sir. One is, I felt a little ironic like when seeing one of the slides that showed the enrollment in schools dropping down, and we have a law that says right of children for free and compulsory education. So I am wondering, is there any section of government that monitors the enrollment process and takes the accountability for that? And the second question is, what is your opinion on the recent curriculum changes that the central government has proposed in India?
Okay.
Thank you.
If the slides gave you an impression that the overall enrollment is coming down, then that's the wrong impression. Overall enrollment is near universal in India now. Public school enrollment is coming down. Private enrollment is going up. But with it total, there is no decline. In time there will be decline because the number of young people of that age group is going to decline with the demographic change. But the problem is, once they enroll after a few years, even illiterate parents are smart enough to understand the kid is not getting anything out of school. Then dropout is dramatic. That is happening all over the country. But enrollment per se is near universal. There is almost no child that is not going to school in India. So, the problem is, public school enrollment is coming down as expenditure is going up in government. Private school enrollment is going up. Okay, that addresses the question. Recent curriculum changes, I don't take them too seriously. You mean by history and stuff like that? These cultural wars, like in the United States, a bit of cultural wars in India also. Obviously, any thoughtful, rational citizen would want a rational, thoughtful education to children. But sometimes, let this pass. Don't be too excited about that. As long as the fundamentals of education are addressed, if you waste your lung power and energy on these peripheral issues, you created red herring yourself. And therefore, I normally don't get into that unless it's really desperately important. Okay.
Sir, actually one thing to add, I heard that the central government was looking to make the CBSE syllabus nationwide. I'm not sure if it's a true news, so I was also referring to that.
Okay, my take on that is, it's better to have multiplicity of systems. You can compare. But at the same time, the expectations of a 10th grade kid or 12th grade kid must be somewhat reasonable. Like in the US, when you have SAT or ACT examination, whatever your curriculum, what you're expected to learn by the time you finish school and you want to go to university is a universally known thing. And therefore, I am a great believer that as far as university admission is concerned, it's better to have some kind of a common admission criteria. How we do it by a competitive examination, entrance examination, or by SAT or ACT kind of an independent testing course, and therefore those courses will be important but not the sole input, etc., etc., is a matter of detail. But I don't think a uniform syllabus across a whole country of 1.4 billion people with so many languages and cultures is a wise thing, because if you bungle somewhere, the whole country is going to be affected. Now, your bungling affects only one small segment of the population, and over years we can see where innovation is there, where mistakes are there. So in a large system, if you try to make it uniform, correctives are harder, innovation is also harder, and mistakes are very high price. If as a general principle, I would say when you aspire for a certain set of curricular goals, don't have a uniform curriculum everywhere. It's not a smart thing. Unity is not uniformity. In India, somehow the people and the political system haven't understood that. Somehow we think that unity is equal to uniformity. It's not true. Let me leave it at that.
Thank you, JP garu. This will be the last question అండి. మీకు ఇవ్వాలంటే తెలుగులోనే అడగండి. మీ పేరు చెప్తారు.
నా పేరు సరిత. నేను పొలిటికల్ రిఫార్మ్స్ వస్తే బాగుంటుంది అనుకుంటున్నాను. ఎందుకంటే మోర్ దాన్ 2 terms ఆఫ్ ఎలక్షన్స్లో కంటెస్ట్ చేయకుండా ఎమ్మెల్యేస్ని ఎంపీస్ని రెస్ట్రిక్ట్ చేయగలిగితే చీఫ్ మినిస్టర్ పోస్ట్కి కానీ పిఎం పోస్ట్కి కానీ వాళ్ళని కట్ చేయగలిగితే 2 terms కన్నా ఎక్కువగా కంటెస్ట్ చేయకుండా గెలిచిన వాళ్ళని పాపం ఓడిపోయిన వాళ్ళకి ఇద్దాం ఒక అవకాశం అట్లా అనుకుంటున్నాను. మీ ఒపీనియన్ అలా లా రిఫార్మ్స్ తీసుకొస్తే ఎలా ఉంటుంది?
If you look at electoral systems,
తెలుగండి, ఈజ్ ఇట్ ఓకే? మేమందరం మీ తెలుగు వినాలని చాలా ఆశపడుతున్నామండి.
but there are some non-Telugu speaking people, therefore it's inappropriate.
Sure. Sorry.
India being what it is, supposing I'm sitting in an audience and they speak in a language I don't understand.
You might want to repeat the question then.
Okay. Our question is, supposing there are term limits for the legislators, will it be better for the country? If you look at the electoral systems in the countries that have our model, first past the post model, what we call, technically it's called first past the post, the British model, where among the contesting candidates, the one who gets the most number of votes, irrespective of the proportion, gets elected. There are no second prizes. And therefore there is this unseemly competition to be the one who is going past the post. And therefore the competitive price of the vote. There's a reason why vote is so highly priced in India. And the smaller the constituency, the greater the price, if you notice. Assembly elections cost more than parliament election on per capita basis. Sometimes local elections cost even more. There is a logic behind it. It is a systemic issue in a poor country. Obviously poor country with very little understanding of democracy. And as I explained to you earlier, there is no link between the vote and the outcomes that I perceive individually. So you put them together, the vote has now a price. That is the first past the post system. There are other electoral models of parliamentary democracy where you derive the executive from the legislature, what we call a parliamentary executive model technically accurately, though we call loosely parliamentary democracy inaccurately. You may have a proportionality model. Much of continental Europe outside of Britain, much of the world actually goes by proportionality model. Because we're used to Britain and its former colonies, we think the only system that works in the world is the British and Indian system. Actually, it's not true. This is a hopeless minority. Even the former British colonies, take for instance, New Zealand has switched over to proportionality model. You take Australia as a very sophisticated model of alternative voting system. Take Britain itself. In Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, you have varying degrees of proportional privilege. Britain itself does not follow their own model, except in British House of Commons. European Parliament in Britain, proportionality model. London City, direct election of a mayor. I mean, a tiny country of Britain, which is our mother country from which we borrowed, has actually practically given up first past the post model except for Parliament. Even that, there are a lot of debates going on. We are the last living Englishmen and women. We want to adhere to the British model, archaic, antiquated model, unsuitable to our conditions. But the broader point is, in a model where the executive is derived from Parliament or legislature, whatever be the thing, unlike in the United States, There are no term limits anywhere in the world. It may be difficult to impose that. But if you switch over to a direct election, like in the United States, particularly at the state level, national level in my view is neither desirable nor feasible. There are too many fears, North, South, Hindu, Muslim, Hindi, non-Hindi. I don't want to go into too many details about the theory and practice. But at the state level, there are no serious risks and there are large advantages. There you can impose term limits. I believe definitely it will help. If nothing else, it will rid us of these dynasties.
Yes, and for corruption.
But in our current model, it's very difficult to implement. There's no example in the world. That's a short answer. Yes.
Thank you so much, JP Garu. Over to Anil Garu. Let's give JP Garu a big round of applause.
Let me say a couple of words in conclusion. First of all, thank you for your attention, for your passion, for your commitment. Second, my only appeal is, if after these 2 hours or so, we come to the conclusion that Indian conditions are terrible, my God, then I think I have failed. If our conclusion is that, yes, there are some things wrong, but we can significantly do a lot of things to improve it. There's nothing intractable. There's a logic behind it. And we have collectively, within the country and across the world, the cumulative experience and knowledge to transform it. It's not rocket science. Then I've achieved at least part of my objective. Therefore, please retain optimism. However dark things appear, the problems of India are in most cases easily solvable. I'm not overstating the case. Easily solvable. It is the stupidity of the power players. It is the status quoism. It is the desire to dominate and control at the cost of the country at every level, not merely political but also bureaucratic and even media. That is the root of the problem. It is not because the problems are intractable. Just like education, I can guarantee you, my whole life I devoted myself to the solutions of the country, not the problems of the country. Just as education, healthcare, local government, political reform, rule of law, agriculture, every one of these sectors, you have a set of practical, meaningful solutions. We can constantly improve it. The world is not ending today. Our innovation is not ending today, but on the basis of the current knowledge globally and nationally, there are clear set of answers. But what the problem in India is, we are so in love with describing the problems, we don't want to look at the solution. I have seen thousands of times people do just something, breastbeating about how bad this is, how bad that is. Then you come up with a solution which is logical, nobody seems to listen. They again repeat the problem. You give a solution, they again repeat the problem. That's not a smart society's function. The second propensity in India is, you come up with any solution, they come up with a problem to that solution. There is no solution which is perfect. There is no system which is perfect. Somebody mentioned United States, Delaware schools. Rajshekhar, 20 years ago I was interacting with Cato Institute. I dealt with all these people all my life. Cato, Heritage, many other foundations, ACLU, etc. When I was describing to Cato Institute people the problems of Indian education 20 years ago, he said, are you describing the Indian situation or the American situation? I told him, look, words are inadequate to describe a problem. So mere words indicate that Indian problem is the same as the American problem. Whereas we have a 90% problem, we have a 30% problem. But we use the same words. After a point, the quantity makes a qualitative difference. Therefore, these are two different words. Otherwise, I'm sure education world over is a complex process. Each of us as parents, we realize how difficult it is. Because who wants to be educated? It's a boring thing. That's why Thomas Edison said, there is no expedient to which a man will not resort to avoid the labor of thinking. The hardest task is thinking. Education is structured thinking. You are forcing the kid to think. It's painful. Watching TV, having fun, going out, hanging out, it's fun. It's human. It applies to you, it applies to me. Tell me honestly. If I give you a serious book and say there's a lot of answer in this, please read it. How many of us are inclined to actually go through that? It requires tremendous discipline at our age. So at kids' age, much more so. So education is complex world over. There's no country which is immensely happy with this education. They have figured out their problems and their solutions, they do it. But we are at a level where it's abysmally bad. This is not where the normal problems of education. This is a disgraceful set of problems that are easily overcome. So is the case with many other sectors. Therefore, there is room for optimism. There is no other country where with so little effort, so much can be accomplished. Because we have so much going in our favor in the country. And yet, if our governance system does not pay attention, there was some lively debate. Sorry, I don't recall the names or don't know the names. We had a discussion before this session. Where were we? He's talking about, no, it's not that the government is always at fault. No. So I forget, wearing t-shirt, not tucked in. That's all I remember. And I agree with him. But the point is that the government becomes an obstacle. See, government is an enabler. We created this artificial institution called government. It is a unique human institution. Because we required large-scale cooperation and because we developed the brain power, we require to enhance the capabilities of our children so that next generation is better. This is uniquely human. All other animals, they depend on instinct. Nature told them what to do, either procreation or feeding. Nothing else mattered. Whereas we go beyond that. We want continuous advancement. You may say it's bad, you may say it's good, spiritual, God, that's a different issue. I presume that all of us in the world are looking for a better life and we are more and more curious. We want to advance the horizons of knowledge and quality of life as we understand. Maybe it's terrible, I don't know. But we're not discussing that. We're not saying that we will go back to the woods and we will go back to the caves and all that. We're talking about normal human aspirations. So the government is created in order to fulfill our collective needs which we individually cannot fulfill. Whether it's rule of law, or infrastructure, or education, or healthcare, the four fundamental goals of modern government. My argument is, in India, our governments are spectacularly failing in all the key functions of government. They are obsessed with acquisition of control and exercising of personal power without serving the larger public purpose in general. I'm not saying everything is bad. I'm saying relative to what needs to happen, we are doing abysmally poorly and therefore we are underperforming as a country. But we have a strong society. We are lucky. We are incredibly, our families are strong. Our society is stable, generally peaceful. And we have no business to be as non-violent and as peaceful and as orderly as we are, given our poverty and multiple problems. But Indian people are incredibly peaceful. You don't have the law and order problems. You don't have a fear that after this is over, on my way, maybe I may be mugged or raped or killed or somebody will shoot down. You don't have that fear. In general, given our poverty and our problems, we are a remarkably stable and peaceful society. Let's count our blessings. Our families are very strong. And we have the collective will to improve our lot. We are amenable to leadership. We can make big change happen if only we make the governing system deliver with our money, with our votes, and with our tax money, the minimal things that they ought to deliver. The rest of it will take care of ourselves. That is the basic philosophy. And I am therefore optimistic. People keep asking me, you are doing it for a generation, and you have seen so much of success and so many frustrations. How do you survive? It's because what we're discussing is not merely numbers on a piece of paper. It is lives. If 180 million kids are shortchanged in the country, even if the kind of things that we want is not happening overnight, what right do I have to say, I give up? You're dealing with 180 million children, their future. Unless you want to commit collective suicide, you cannot give up. If it happens quickly, if you're smart as a country, fine. If it happens slowly, there's no other way, so be it. But it must happen, it can happen, and these are practical issues. This is not some spiritual quest. This is a very practical, common sense quest. So my appeal is, please retain optimism. Empower yourselves. Deepen your perception. Bring your experience, your expertise in a variety of fields to the table here. In our professional work, in our businesses, we bring all that to the table. In our public work, we become emotional without bringing those qualities that are required to make success. My appeal is, the qualities required for real success are the same in public work as in private work. It's not that different. Once we understand that, how to mobilize, how to use the levers of power, how to change it. Collectively, if we try, I'm a great optimist, opportunities always come. The biggest changes I engineered happened in a few minutes. The smallest changes I fought for sometimes took a generation. For a silly fight for measles and rubella vaccine in the US now, in many pockets, I'm told there's a measles epidemic. For 19 years, I fought to get MR vaccine part of the public vaccination program. I was reasonably influential. I was the author of the National Health Mission. I was in the Prime Minister's task force, headed only with Prime Minister, and only 6 of us were members. At that level, I was operating. And my word was carrying considerable weight. It still took me 19 years to get the damn vaccine in place. One way of thinking is, my God, in these 19 years, probably about 4 to 5 million children were born with preventable congenital abnormalities because of rubella. What a terrible waste. Other way of thinking is, thank God at last now, every year 2.5 lakh children, a 250,000 children, are saved from these congenital abnormalities by birth. Preventable abnormalities. You pick your choice. If it happened 19 years ago, I would have been happier. But I'm happy it has happened now. Now we have MR vaccine rolled out in the country. What else is the option? Pray tell me if there's another way, I will do it. There is no other rational way. You have to make change happen. One fell swoop if it's possible, bit by bit if it's necessary. Quickly if the system is ready to respond, slowly if that's the only way you can make it happen. But change must happen. Status quo is a disaster. We are doing pretty badly. We are underperforming. Our society is vibrant and dynamic with all its flaws. Our government is the obstacle. It's totally a dinosaur. We have to change the way the government functions at every level. And that is this quest. You all have this passion. There's nothing new I bring to the table. I'm only urging you, let us channelize this passion constructively and creatively. Big changes happen. Conceive them, work for them systematically, and things do happen. I know for a fact. I thank you for your attention. I thank you for your passion. And I hope that all of you do leave your contact details, emails, etc. We will create a virtual community and we will figure out how to A, engage each of us in these debates in the sectors that you are interested in, and B, create action points to suit your requirements of your own passion or your own proclivities, and also collectively begin to raise our voice to make some of these things happen. Not everything happens. For instance, in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, when the governments, when I started this process about 7-8 years ago, that's when the 2 states were, at that time 1 state, were sensitized. So they were beginning to start this process of consolidation of schools. Each time they attempt, immediately there are newspaper headlines. Suppose you start screaming, all this is bunkum, you require consolidation of schools, you cannot have this bogus argument of 1,000 schools being shut down. Then that will have traction. Nobody is speaking. So what's happening is between the fight between the chief minister and these teachers or teachers employees and teachers unions or teachers MLCs. The parents are nowhere, they don't understand the issues. There's nobody to articulate what is required to be done. Eventually politicians give up. If there's nobody supporting them, for instance, you have a citizens charter. Telangana government brought in citizens charter for municipalities. Employees naturally will be outraged. Now, how do you want to penalize us for not working? It is our birthright not to work. It's our birthright to collect price. That is India, right? So a government, by doing it, actually risking some political vote. Supposing we don't stand up and say, this is our fight, not the chief minister's fight, why will the government change anything? So that is what I mean. We must know when to exercise our voice. It's not always against the government. It's not the government or the chief minister or the prime minister who is always guilty. It's much more complicated. We must have that sense. And that's why if you notice, I never go after individuals. If I believe something, I praise them lavishly. Unless what they are doing is directly antithetical to public interest, I rarely criticize them. Even the few times I criticize them, they cannot take it because of the credibility. After all, I'm a lone person, but immediately the reaction is very violent. Anybody else says they are not bothered. Because here they know this word carries weight, because truth has power. They cannot suppress it. And therefore they try to blow it. But behind that, I take it positively. That your word is taken seriously, they attack you directly, is actually a sign that they are worried about it. Equally use that power of approval or disapproval wisely. If they do something right, lavishly praise them, give them an incentive to do the right thing. Don't become polarized. No, Modi, anti-Modi, KCR, anti-KCR, Jagan, anti-Jagan. This is not for the enlightened people. This is not for wise people. This is not for smart people. This is for different kind of people. Let me not use harsh words. Let's rise above that. There are people, there are problems, there are opportunities, there are answers. We will be part of the solution, not be part of the problem. Thank you once again. Keep the honor. Good luck.